Welcome into another episode of Profits Picks. We have two games on the slate today. We'll go ahead and look at a side and we'll look at a total for both. We'll also take a look at a few player props and we'll go in the order that the games go off. We'll start with the Toronto Raptors taking on the Boston Celtics. That game opened Celtics minus 2.5, currently seeing 3.5 out there. Total opening 210 and is down just 1 point to 209. And just a second on the total. 1 point during the series, I believe game two, we saw a total close at 218.5. It's about 10 points lower. So, I mean, I know they've been going under. At some point, how low is too low? I know we've seen these teams reach about 207 two times. I think the 209 mark is reachable here. You, Before we even get into the side, but just touching on it, I mean, Toronto back against the wall, heart of a champion. I know that they're going to fight. And what that tells me is they should play decent defense, and their offense should be a lot better than we've seen. And for Boston, I trust them to score regardless. I mean, they have probably the best three players on the court uh, in that starting lineup. So they've been getting buckets in this series, before the series. I trust all of those guys to score. Toronto kind of scores more as a team, but in this back against the wall type game, I do think they bring it. The one thing though, and it goes both ways. I like Ibaka, but I'll talk about the total for right now. I like Ibaka for this Raptors team. He knocks down a few 3 pointers for them on the outside, and defensively, he's better than some of the Raptors' other big man options. But I think they'll miss him defensively for sure, and that's why I think Boston definitely won't have too much trouble scoring. So for those reasons, there, I lean towards this one getting over 209. And then let's say we look at the side for a second. I say we can't count out Toronto, heart of a champion. I also mentioned Serge Ibaka. But what does he mean for the side? I said his 3 point shooting and his defense. I mean, that should tell you. I mean, if he's not in, I don't really like the Raptors at all. I know their back is against the wall. I know they're champions, but their bench. I mean, the only guys to like from this team have been Norman Powell and Ibaka on the bench. And if Ibaka can't go, I mean, Ibaka's been better than their starter, better than Gasol. So if he can't go, that spells trouble for Toronto for me. If Marcus Gasol stuck out on the floor, hey, he floats around the 3 point line, and he hasn't made a 3 pointer since August 23rd. So I'm not putting too much. I mean, if I'm the Boston Celtics, I'm fine with him standing out there, just jacking them up. If Ibaka plays, I could definitely understand taking Raptors plus the points. If he doesn't play, I don't think there's any way that I can necessarily see that Raptors side. And just looking at Boston in general, Boston versus competition, 55% win teams are better. They're 26 and 14 against the spread. I cut it down a little bit. Playing 55% teams or better when rested, they're 25 and 9. So a few of those losses were on back to back. So 25 and 9. I think Boston is. I mean, they have the better players in this series. And if you cut down that Toronto bench even more, it just gets evened up. Toronto hasn't been able to take advantage of the bench for Boston without Gordon Hayward. And Boston, as long as Kemba Walker's being aggressive, I think Jason Tatum, he'll be able to get to the rim. Jaylen Brown will be able to get to the rim, especially if Ibaka doesn't play. So I think we monitor the status of Ibaka. If he plays, I maybe look towards Toronto with the points. If he's out, I like Boston. And it shouldn't be that much of a line move. I don't think the books think Ibaka's worth that much to the line, but he's worth that much to me. And if we're going to look at player props in this game, I don't really trust Siakam. I mean, they've shown that they can shut Siakam down. I don't really trust his offensive game in the playoffs. So I would look towards his point total under that 20.5. And I talked about Gasol. I mean, like I said, he hasn't made a three-pointer since August 23rd. Now, I think you also monitor the status of Ibaka for this play, but if Ibaka plays, I think you like it even more because he's not asked to do so much, and he hasn't been doing so much. But Gasol points under 7.5 or Gasol three-pointers under zero point 0.5. If Ibaka does play, I mean, if he does not play, I may look just towards Gasol's three-pointers. I mean, he could make one, but he hasn't made one since a couple weeks. So I'm not really banking on him to. I mean, if Toronto's down, they're not really gonna want him out there shooting them if he hasn't been making them. That's why I think I saw the first few games he shot about two or three, and then he started to cut it down the past couple games. He shot just one the past couple games. So I think Gasol under point 0.5 three-pointers is still a good look. And we'll go ahead and go to the next game. We're gonna go LA Clippers facing the Denver Nuggets. And that open Clippers minus 7.5. Now seeing minus 8. Total opening 220.5. And we're seeing 221. Now, it's a tough one for me as far as the side. Denver, I mean, if they lose this game, pretty much their season is a wrap. I mean, they came down from 3-1 before, just the past series. And it's not very likely that teams do that. But seeing them do it twice, especially against this Clipper team, would be too much to overcome. So I think they have to bring the kitchen sink tonight. And that's what has me skeptical. I usually like the Clippers. I mean, I like to play the Clippers. I think they're the better team. I think they're just not giving 100% effort to cover these point spreads all the time. But when they're off of a loss, that is especially when I like the Clippers. And in this one, it's a little bit it's a little bit tough. I trust the Clippers to score, but I trust them to give that effort to defend. I'm not quite sure. And Denver, if you like Denver at all in this game, they're going to score the ball. If I have to pick one, and I don't love it because I'm kind of going back and forth here on the fence, but I trust the Clippers more than I trust Denver. I know the Clippers can score. I know the Clippers can defend. All that I'm going to ask for is effort. And we also don't know Denver's mind frame. Like, they played two very good games, and they lost. Or they played 3 games, rather, but they lost a couple. So I'm just not sure if they're thinking, like, we did all we can really do and we still lost, or if they're really going to come out here and fight. It's a young team. I would lean towards taking the Clippers just because that's who I trust more. And on the total, I mean, I've kind of hinted at it already, but we trust the Clippers to score. We trust the Clippers to defend, but it's a matter of effort. I mean, we've seen them not really care to defend until late in the game if they're down. So I think it's more so easygoing scoring, especially since they just won the last game. Denver, even if they try to play defense, I think the Clippers still have their way. And on offense, I think Denver can score as well. If the Clippers are lackadaisical and they can allow Denver to do their thing. So I think this one can get over that total, 221. I think that's pretty reasonable number. And I think they both can get over. So that's the way that I look in that game. As far as player props, let's look at a few. The one I probably like the most, if the Nuggets are going to have success in this game, they're going to need a big game from Jokic. There's no other way around that. And the game that got blown out, he only had 3 rebounds. But outside of that, I mean, he's been grabbing the boards. 12 rebounds, 18 rebounds. Even the game 7, 14 rebounds. I trust Jokic to get over 10.5 rebounds. He has to play well if Denver has a shot. And he's proven that he can grab more than 11 boards. So that's probably my favorite look right there. Some other ways that I would probably look in this game, like I said, I mean, the Clippers, they're a great perimeter defending team. And when they don't really care, yeah, okay, he can do his thing. But we've seen when they care, they've held Murray down already this series a little bit. But 23.5 points, his point totals are a little bit lower than the last time we saw it. I think it can still go under. I know he's capable of putting up some points. I know I said I like the over on the game, but they can still reach that without Jamal Murray. I think if the Clippers are focused on anybody defensively, that's the guy. So I'll look towards his points under 23.5. And if I'm going to play another player prop, it will probably be Marcus Morris. His points have gotten higher than I'd like, so I will look towards his 3 pointers. He's shooting about close to 4.5 3 pointers per game, and his 3 point total is at 1.5. I think he can make at least two. Those are the three ways that I'll look as far as player props for these games here. I'll do a quick review. I'll go in the Celtics game. We're monitoring the status of Ibaka. If he plays, you can look towards Toronto. If he doesn't, we're looking at Boston. And I think this game gets over the total in this last. I wouldn't say last because I think Boston honestly will win. But in this game 6, I think it can get over that 209 mark. That is a little bit lower, about 10 points lower than we've seen at times throughout the series. And in the Clippers game, if we're playing the Clippers, and on the total, we like it to go over. And player props, we like Marc Gasol under 0.5 3 pointers. We like them under 7.5 points. Leaning towards Siakam under that 20.5. And in his Clipper Denver game, best bet for the player prop was Jokic over 10.5 rebounds. Murray under 23.5 points. And then last but not least, Morris over 1.5 3 pointers. Thank you for rocking with me on another episode of Profits Picks. Best of luck if you tail. Good luck on all of your action. And we'll catch you again tomorrow. Let's keep making that money.